Hi everybody, this is Kevin and welcome to part 1 of my Dragon Ball Z review and retrospective, going back over the past few months to rewatch the series, and I figure I'd give my thoughts on each individual season and all sorts of memories that are associated with it. So, first and foremost, I went and rewatched the Blu-rays here. This is my way of watching because, frankly, while they're pretty good quality, the best quality to watch the series is through the Dragon boxes, which were released in the mid-2000s, but are now out of print, and have been out of print for some time. That's why, let me show you this, if you go to eBay, you'll see you can buy the whole set here for $1,400. And what happened was they released the Dragon boxes severely underprinted, and immediately after that they released the orange bricks, which instead of using the 4:3 aspect ratio, they used the 16:9 and cropped images made, cut off certain parts of the show, and they were cheaper, yeah, but the quality wasn't so good. And then after that, they released the level sets, which also got canceled. And that was because when they were releasing the level sets, they were in the process of, dubbing Kai and releasing the Kai Blu-rays, and then eventually in 2012 through 2013, we got these, which, is the most cost-efficient way to watch the series, or else, just find it online somewhere. But anyway, in part 1 here, we're just going to talk about what they call Season 1, which collects episodes 1 through 39, the beginning, or really the whole Saiyan Saga, and the beginning of the Namek Saga, because those last 3 episodes is technically the start of the Namek Saga, with Bulma going with Mr. Popo to find the Namekian spaceship that Kami arrived in all those years ago, and things like that. So, first and foremost, I remember watching Dragon Ball Z on Channel 11, which was the WB, at 6 o'clock in the morning on certain days. I think it was either Saturday or Sunday morning, and it was the Ocean dub, owned by Saban at the time, and heavily edited and censored. And actually, believe it or not, with the first 2 seasons here, you got episodes 1 through 74, which is right when Goku arrives and elbows Raccoon. And this here, another time capsule, the Rock the Dragon edition, which is the initial Ocean dub that collects episodes 1 through 53, which is the equivalent to Funimation's 1 through 74. It just shows you how edited it was, as well as the first 3 movies, which I actually prefer the Ocean dub of the first 3 movies. But it was heavily edited here, and they cut out, I haven't watched it in a while, but they cut out blood. I remember they would always say, instead of killing someone, they'd say, oh, we're going to send him to a different dimension. You had the scenes of Nappa destroying the military and planes and stuff, and Ten Shinhan made a comment oh, well, they didn't really die, they were saved off screen. It's they made comments like that, and, heavily edited and stuff. That was because Saban, and I'm trying to think, I guess, they did Power Rangers and stuff like that back in the day, too. But anyway, from 96 to 97, you got that, and then Toonami came into existence in 97, I believe, and that's, everyone would race home after school to catch Dragon Ball Z. It was always on, double feature. It was, 4 and 4:30, or 4:30 and 5. You had to watch Sailor Moon first, of course, and then sit and watch an hour of Dragon Ball Z, and get your homework done and watch that real quick. And just so many good times watching it. I mean, I remember the Ocean dub. You had Ian Holmes started off doing the voice for Goku, and then was replaced by Peter Kalamis. You had Scott McNeil as Piccolo, Brian Drummond, of course, as Vegeta, and I always liked Peter Kalamis's voice acting as Goku. I mean, Sean Schemmel has grown. I always, listen to English dub anyway, but, Sean Schemmel's grown on me. Vegeta, of course, is what's his name? What's his name? Chris Sabat, that's right, as Vegeta. He's grown on me. They're iconic in their roles now. But, going back with the Ocean dub is always fun. Really nostalgic for that. And the way that this is released with the Funimation, because as I said, you had the Ocean dub to begin with. These 2 seasons here, which was originally done by the Ocean dub, is since done with Funimation, and interestingly enough, was redubbed in the mid 2000s, 2003, 2004, 2005, after the series had wrapped up. But anyway, I digress. So, starting off here, let's just pop this open. So, the first 5 episodes or so is getting you acquainted to Gohan and basic stuff. The first episode is just Gohan playing in the woods, and Goku finds him with the Nimbus and everything, and they're on their way. And then Goku's brother Raditz arrives and kidnaps Gohan. He's like, Kakarot, you're supposed to destroy this planet all these years ago. What have you done? And of course kidnaps him and beats the crap out of Goku. And at that point, they start talking about power levels and stuff. And Raditz is like 1200, and Goku's is in like the 130s. And and then Piccolo there at the end of Dragon Ball. Piccolo and Goku are rivals, and they got to team up to defeat the ultimate enemy here. And in the beginning, Master Roshi and Krillin are like, oh, maybe we should help. And then Goku's like, oh, you guys already died. We can't wish you back with the Dragon Balls, so it must be Piccolo and I who must team up. So they sit this one out to go rescue Gohan. Of course they do. They team up despite their differences, and that's when you got Piccolo using the Makanko Senpai, the special beam cannon, to defeat Raditz and Goku in the same time. And Piccolo's like, oh, I defeated you, but I didn't want to defeat you this way. And you also saw the flashes of Gohan showing his powers as he gets out of the Saiyan pod and injures Raditz with the headbutt to the stomach and all sorts of good stuff. So then at that time, Goku's dead and Raditz dying breath. He says that Vegeta and Nappa, 2 more powerful warriors, are on their way, and they'll be here in a year's time. So you'll all die. So at that point, they gotta find the Dragon Balls and wish Goku back, and everyone does their training. And in the midst of that, they have I guess this is a lot of filler too. In the manga, it sort of just cuts a few panels. I think 1 chapter of them training with Mr. Popo and Kami, and then Saiyans arrive, and of course Goku gets his training from King Kai. But what happens is Kami is able to transport Goku to King Yama, and they grant him passage to travel via Snake Way. He makes his way over there through all sorts of trials and tribulations. Of course, he falls down and meets Gaz and Maz, the denizens of hell. And in the Ocean dub, it was HFIL, the Home for Infinite Losers, because of course you couldn't say hell. I mean, come on, that was like their dopey censoring. So, Goku's able to outwit them and make his way back, but the way he gets on like this elevator and starts at the beginning, meets King Yama again. He's like, oh, Goku, what are you doing back here? So eventually he makes his way to King Kai, and they keep cutting back and forth. You have the, Piccolo is taking on Gohan to train him because, he saw Gohan's untapped potential when he headbutted Raditz and gave him that devastating attack to knock him unconscious or whatever. And then you have all the other heroes. You have, Tien Shinhan, Chaozu, Yamcha, Krillin, and all of them, and even Yajirobe, and they climb Kami's tower and get sent to that pendulum room with, Mr. Popo sends them in there, and they fight the Saiyans from the past. And I always like that filler of them training. In the early stages, the filler felt like it had purpose because you had Gohan with like the saber-toothed tiger playing with him and then fighting the T-Rex. Eventually, he was like so terrified of the T-Rex, but eventually he was hungry and he had to do something. So he had that sword that Piccolo gave him and chopped off a bit of his tail over and over again. He had the moment where he met the Mr. Robot. He goes into like this cave, uses his powers and gets trapped in there somehow. And Mr. Robot becomes his friend, and the cave starts collapsing, and the robot sacrifices himself, and Gohan sees loss for the first time, I guess, even though he saw his father die. But you also have the scene where he goes to the orphanage and befriends them, and all those kids are being chased by the police. And I always found it funny with the police in Dragon Ball. They're like dogs. I mean, what the hell is that? It's just Toriyama's craziness, I guess. But, the one police officer is like a dog, and what is it, the one president or whatever? I think he's a dog, or he's a fox, or some kind of animal like that. So the filler's pretty good and shows Gohan develop as a character, and all the while Piccolo's watching, getting a sort of humanity. And eventually what happens is, Gohan's sleeping, and of course he still has the tail, and sees a full moon and turns into the great ape, and Piccolo destroys the moon, and It's kind of funny. And then eventually, a few episodes later, there's actually like a projection from Goku's Saiyan pod from way back when that has a projection of the moon, and Piccolo has to destroy that spaceship. So cool stuff going on there. And before I kind of skipped over the Z Fighters, how they were training with Kami, but before that, it shows how they've all gone their separate ways. Like Yamcha's playing baseball, and he's like the best baseball player because, of course, he's definitely one of the strongest humans. I mean, the Z Fighters, they're all humans. They're the strongest humans in the land there. So he's hitting home runs and stuff. And then you got Tien Shinhan training under the waterfall with Chaozu, and he's just doing like Tri-Beam, yeah! That's his new technique or whatever that he's practicing, and he has this internal monologue where he's like, I gotta become more powerful than Goku. Because back in Dragon Ball, you had, Goku was a kid, and at that point, I think Tien's, he's taller than him. He's gotta be older than him. I'm not sure as far as the ages or timelines go, but, he in that one tournament, they battled each other, and of course, Goku beat him, and then they teamed up. And stuff like that. So he's always been trying to surpass Goku to no avail. So you have all that going on, and then Launch makes an appearance, and meanwhile, Master Roshi, he's just chilling at home with Bulma being a pervert, with Oolong and the turtle and all that, and Bulma's like playing with the scouter, and they test all their power levels, and the turtle's power level is like 0.001. Master Roshi's is like maybe 100 or something, and Krillin's is like maybe, I don't know, 110, slightly above Master Roshi. Despite, like, later on, you see in Super, Master Roshi's fighting Frieza's men. It's just crazy how the power scaling goes, but that's a topic for another day. So then Goku, he's on Snake Way, and he meets Princess Snake, and that was always a funny episode to me, because, like, watching as a kid, it's like, this is stupid filler, I want to see the fights. But watching as an adult, like, Princess Snake wanted to smash Goku and seduce him and stuff, and it was pretty crazy. And Goku was so oblivious, he just wanted to eat. He's like, I'm starving, I gotta eat something. And he thought she was like King Kai or whatever. So eventually, she turns into a snake and gets all tangled up on Snake Way and makes his way to King Kai's. And he thinks Bubbles is King Kai at first, which is pretty funny. He just running around like, ooh, 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 he's like doing that, like the monkey dance, and Goku's like, oh, we gotta train like this, okay, ooh, 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 and he starts doing that. Then eventually meets King Kai and has all the tests. He's got to catch Bubbles, and of course the planet has more higher gravity, so Goku's struggling, and then conquers that, and then has to hit Gregory on the head with the hammer, and of course conquers that, and then has to tell King Kai a joke, and then he learns his techniques, the Genki Dama, also known as the Spirit Bomb in English, and the Kaioken, learns his techniques. And at that point, this is when the villains arrive, Vegeta and Nappa, and they're wrecking havoc all over the place. And, Gohan's with Piccolo. They make their way to the battlefield and meet Krillin. And then slowly but surely our other heroes show up. Yamcha shows up next, I believe, and then Tien and Chaozu show up. And they're all there ready to have their training. They're ready to go. And Vegeta and Nappa show up, and they're using their scouters, and they determine that, these guys are all weak. Their power levels are only like the 300s. And of course, being Earthlings and being able to channel their energy, they're able to suppress their power levels. And at this point, I guess Piccolo is definitely the strongest, and I guess Gohan has the potential, but he's still afraid. I mean, he was training with Piccolo, and Piccolo was like going back and forth. Gohan was getting some shots in on him during their training. And Piccolo's like, oh, this kid, he's got it. He's got the power. Of course, the kid's afraid, and eventually they have their battle, and Nappa gets the Cybermen, and what do they have? Their power levels are like 1,000, or maybe 1,200, whatever. They're equivalent to Raditz. And Yamcha's doing well, defeating it in hand-to-hand combat, but what happens is the Cyberman wraps around Yamcha and explodes and kills Yamcha, and he's the first casualty there. And I always had a theory, like watching back then, if all our heroes had teamed up, perhaps they could have done a better job as opposed to going one-on-one, because that's what happened there. They all went one-on-one, with Yamcha going first, being the first casualty, and that's always been the meme, that Yamcha always dies first, and really it's true. Because even you'll see later of the Android Saga, he's the first casualty in that as well. But, if they all teamed up, they definitely could have won there. But, they all go forth with their battles, and then they defeat the Cybermen, and I think Piccolo's the one who defeats them all. He like throws them up in the air and uses his blast from his mouth. And then eventually they fight Nappa. I think it's Tien versus Nappa, and then he gets, totally defeated, gets his arm chopped off, and then Chaozu sacrifices himself, gets onto the back of Nappa and explodes, and at that point, Nappa's armor all falls off, but not really much of an effect. And Tien uses the last of his power to use the Tri-Beam and saps the rest of his energy, and deals a devastating blow to Nappa, but still not enough. So at that point, you have Piccolo, Krillin, and Gohan, the only guys left, and the three of them team up and are able to do well. Like Krillin, I think, attacks first, then Piccolo, and then it's like, now Gohan, attack! And Gohan's so afraid he just stands there and doesn't do anything. He's terrified, so he doesn't attack. So the three of them are putting up defense, and at that point, Gohan is just still afraid and is about to be destroyed by Nappa, and Piccolo stands in the way, takes the finishing blow and dies. And at that point, after Piccolo's death, Kami dies too, and with that the Dragon Balls. But before that had happened, Master Roshi had revived Goku, but what happened is Goku's halo disappeared. He's living again, but he's still on King Kai's planet, so he has to travel back via Snake Way, and he's debating or not whether he should use the Kaioken to get back faster, but he needs to conserve energy. So, he uses his, he flies, but still rather slow. So, of course, Piccolo dies, all his friends die, and all that's left is Krillin and Gohan. And, then Goku makes his way back and get ready for an epic battle and powers up, and you get the iconic, it's over 9,000! And he makes quick work of Nappa, and Vegeta's disgusted by Nappa that he throws him into the air and kills him himself. And then, of course, Vegeta and Goku get ready for their battle, and truly an epic fight. Like, among the top 5 Dragon Ball Z fights, even to this day. Like, I gotta think doing a proper list there, but definitely a top 5 fight there between Vegeta and Goku. And especially when Vegeta gets up in the air, get ready to do his Gallic Gun, and Goku retaliates with the Kamehameha Wave, and does Kaioken times 2 or 3 or whatever to equalize it, and sends Vegeta flying up into the air. And they just go back and forth, and so many epic scenes, especially with the music, the Kikuchi score. With this is before Faulkner got involved, the Faulkner Productions score, which I really do like that, but, watching this in the beginning with the Kikuchi score, and which is the original Japanese score. And they have their battle, and of course Goku keeps using the Kaioken as being sapped of his energy. And he used all his sensu beans to revive Krillin and Gohan. So I don't think he had any sensu beans left at that point. Otherwise, he should have used them, right? So they go back and forth, have their epic battle, and Vegeta's looking for the moon because he's getting so overwhelmed. He's like, I got my tail. I guess if I look at the moon, I can turn into the Great Ape. But there's no moon because Piccolo had destroyed it. So, he has this mechanism to create an artificial moon, which he does. Turns into a Great Ape himself. And Goku's just getting completely overwhelmed. Like, he's getting squished to death. Krillin decides to use the Destructo Disc to try and cut off his tail from behind. But, Vegeta has heightened senses, I guess, so he's able to avoid it. And getting all distracted. And then all of a sudden, Yajirobe shows up with the sword and cuts off his tail. Who would have thought that of all the heroes, Yajirobe would come through in the clutch and, does that. So... And then eventually Gohan, because his tail grows back. Piccolo had ripped his tail off, but it eventually grew back, and he turns into a Great Ape, stomping around. And then eventually Vegeta gets hit in the eye, and he's blind in one eye, and just gets completely destroyed. And then Gohan falls on him as a Great Ape and crushes him, and all sorts of crazy stuff happens. And then eventually, Vegeta's calling forth his ship to escape. And Krillin has Yajirobe's blade and is ready to stab him and rid him once and for all. And Goku's like, no, let him go. I have to surpass him, and maybe he'll have a change of heart or whatever. And that's how Vegeta survives and lives to fight another day. But really, great sequence of events. I mean, let's just go through the episode list here. So, like I said, the first 5 episodes is the Battle of Raditz, and then you have episode 6 through 10 with the Gohan filler. Oh, and then episode 11 is Terror on Arlia. That's when you see Vegeta and Nappa conquering other planets, those plant-like creatures. Gods and Ma's, the snakes, the dueling Piccolos. So that's all the training and stuff. And then episode 22 is the Darkest Day. That's when the Saiyans arrive. And 28 is Goku's arrival. So from like 28 to 35 is the whole battle. Of course, yeah. Another thing, Goku uses the Spirit Bomb, is able to harness energy, and he gives it to Krillin. He says, Krillin, use the Spirit Bomb because I'm too weak. I was able to harness the energy, but I personally can't use it, so you got to do it. And of course, Krillin misses. Krillin's always effing up. I mean, he means well, but he's always making a little blunders. And then you have 36 to 39, picking up the pieces, plans for departure, nursing wounds, and friends or foes, which is really the beginning of the Namek Saga. You have Goku in the hospital, and that's so funny too, because he's in the hospital and this doctor's trying to give him a needle, and he's like, "I hate needles! Don't give me a needle!" And the whole time, Master Roshi's sitting there, he's got like his dirty magazines, and the nurse goes by, he like grabs the nurse's ass. It's so funny, man. Master Roshi's hilarious. And then eventually Yajirobe comes with like some sensu beans and gives, maybe that's like in season 2, but he gives Goku a sensu bean, and he's all wrapped up in all these bandages like a mummy, and he does a backflip, and he's like, "Yee, I'm all better." And the doctor's like, "No, you need medicine." "Oh, I'm leaving." And he jumps out the window and flies away. And Chi-Chi's all pissed off, and it's just great. And then I always like the scene when Bulma goes with Mr. Popo to find Kami's spaceship, and you get the backstory about when Kami came there as a young Namekian, and when he split with Piccolo to create, the evil Demon King Piccolo and the good Kami, and that was always a good scene. But anyway, so many good memories watching Dragon Ball Z. This has been a bit of a long video, 22 minutes now, but yeah, just recounting memories, going off the cuff, talking about all the fun stuff. So with part 2, we'll be discussing season 2, the beginning of the Namek Saga, the Namek filler, and going through that up until like the Ginyu Force. So thanks for watching, everybody, and stay tuned for part 2. Have a great day.